They took us, then they separated us from each other. First, they shot my father. After that, they martyred 2 of my brothers. This entire graveyard belongs to our village. The Americans martyred all of them. They were all civilians.
Musafir Shaheed. This area, surrounded by mountains, is the Shamakat Valley in the Ailishing district of Lagman province. At the foot of the mountain, there is a village made of mud and stones. The ruined houses, faces battered by poverty, marks of bullets on the walls and rooms turned into rubble all testify that the past 20 years of occupation have devastated the people of this valley and taken much from their lives. These are the scars of the ruthless aerial bombings by the occupiers' aircraft on the highlands of Shamakat Valley, which are referred to as the bitter and terrifying early days in the minds of the people of this valley. Many untold and ignored tragedies have befallen the people living in the embrace of this valley, and perhaps many of them lack the ability to speak or hear about them. However, the truth remains that the occupiers committed all kinds of atrocities against the nation of Afghanistan. August 24, 2018. The nights in Shamakat Valley were linked to death, and the people of Nazar Muhammad Kale village would seek refuge in the mountains at night. However, Ahmad, an elderly man from the same village who had just returned from a journey, stayed home that night with his children. But around 12 o'clock at night, Ahmad's house was raided by the occupiers. Along with Ahmad, his 2 brave sons were also drenched in blood, and by morning, the door of a poor and helpless family was carrying 3 coffins. Mohammadullah is one of Ahmad's surviving sons who was a child during the raid and was relocated to another place along with the women of the family.
I was small at that time, and my brothers said, "What do they want from us? We are civilians, go to sleep." When it was 12 o'clock at night, the Americans raided. The raid came to the house at night. They took the people outside, and separated the children from them. First, they shot my father, then they martyred my 2 brothers. They took us away from the house, planted explosive materials around it, and set off an explosion. They destroyed our house and martyred my family members. Here, one of my brothers named Nemat was martyred, here my other brother named Wahid was martyred, and here my father was martyred. When we arrived in the morning, they had broken them into pieces. We took them and placed them on bedsteads. It was a very bad situation, and we took them to the clinic. The wounds were very severe, and they had been badly hurt.
That night, it wasn't only Ahmad family who suffered, as the occupiers' raid claimed the lives of many. By the time the raid ended, the number of martyrs had risen to 7.
When we arrived, the people were telling us, they came to us first, and we reached them. When we arrived, the martyrs were lying there. Ahmad Mama, may Allah accept his martyrdom along with all the Muslims, his sons were also martyrs there. The reality was very painful. It was a very painful incident that happened in this area. Before this, no such painful event had occurred here. On that night, in the raid, around 7 people were martyred. 3 were in this house, and 2 were in that house. There's even a painful story where one of them had their hand cut off. That poor man was a helper, a driver, doing his job. On that day, that poor guest was in this house, and they martyred him. At 12 o'clock that night, they martyred 7 people. There were many hardships here.
Mohammedullah show us the graves of his family's martyrs in this cemetery here. It's not only the graves of Mohammedullah's martyred family members, but this sacred cemetery is the eternal resting place of many who were martyred at the hands of the occupiers.
This is the grave of the martyr Zar Muhammad, where explosive materials were placed on his hand. This is the grave of the martyr Nemad, who was martyred in the raid. This is my father's grave, and this is my other brother's grave. This is my uncle's grave. The rest of the entire graveyard belongs to our village. They were all martyred by the Americans. They were all civilians.
This house was also part of the sacrifice of that night's raid. Although Mr. Jalad and Muhammad had left the village in fear of the raid, their nephew remained behind as a host to a guest and stayed in the house with him. The story goes like this.
The incident happened on a Friday night in the year 2019. They conducted the raid here. One of the guests was with us. One was my nephew, named Sulla. The Americans took him. They placed explosive materials on his hand and detonated it. The guest had also arrived, and he had brought a horse with him. He was also here. He was our son-in-law. And they also martyred our nephew. Here, they gathered all the women from the 3 houses, and they collected all the children, both small and big. They placed a bomb in the middle of this area, and they surrounded them all. It was a strange thing. It had green lines on it, and they first gave it to them. Then they took everything from them, and after that, they brought a bomb and placed it in the middle. The Americans placed the bomb in the middle and gathered the children around it. Then, during the raid, they caused chaos. I swear to God, from that time until now, whenever I think of my children, my heart aches, knowing that all of them have been martyred.
Zalmai, an elderly man, is a member of another family. On the night of that raid, a drone strike by the occupiers targeted his house, and one of his brothers was martyred in the attack. The marks of the dropped bomb's explosion are still visible on the blanket of the house, and Zalmai has kept them as a symbol of that injury and in memory of his martyred brother.
My brothers and I were sitting together here. At that moment, a plane flew by, making 4 or 5 passes. When it reached that place, it released its shells, and it came down here and landed. We were trying to dry our clothes, but everything became a mess. Then, the news spread that all the people had come. Look, these shells came out of it. All of them came out, and it was a bloody mess. Even now, there are still traces of shell fragments here. Everyone was gone. 5 survived, and 1 became a martyr, my brother Farouk. Now, this is the moment when we walk in the space of happiness. The dark shadow that was over us, that dark night, has now turned into light.
The cruelty and brutality of the foreign occupiers' helplessness forced the residents of every affected area to take up arms in defense of themselves and others. This was the only remaining choice to rescue themselves, their families, and the homeless families from the clutches of the invaders. Defending their religion, country, and people is embedded in the bloodline of the Afghans, and there is a chapter in the history of the world's great powers where the deeds of the Afghans are preserved. During the 20 years of occupation, this very spirit prevailed among the Afghans, and with the limited resources they had, they stood firm against the oppression of the invaders.
Almost in 1984, 1985, and 1986, we started our practical work for jihad. At that time, the mujahideen were very few. Because these were the early days, and the Americans, when they arrived, did a lot of propaganda, telling the people all sorts of things. Despite that, the people developed this passion and rose up, starting jihad against the Americans. At that time, the Americans had a center in Logar, called the PRT, where they lived. From there, they built bases, which were in places like Kali Najal and in other different areas. Their bases were established. One area that was under the control of the Mujahideen was the Shamakat area. I am a witness of that time. In that area, and in other places, the Mujahideen had their centers. The Mujahideen would live in these areas. They would come down and set up ambushes in these areas, fighting the enemy and having battles with them. The number of Mujahideen at that time was about 30 or 35, the number of Mujahideen was not that large. The enemy's propaganda was such that they claimed they could hit even 1 inch of land. The Mujahideen were very concerned, but they still gathered the courage to start Fidai attack at that time.
Haji Mujahid is one of the early Mujahideen of this region who took up armed jihad against the occupiers. And this is the area where the Mujahideen, under the leadership of the Mujahid, blew up an occupier's tank with a bomb, causing significant casualties.
I came with my friends, and we were sitting in this area. There were old rocks here, placed by the people long ago. My friends sat down in this place. In this area, a bomb had been planted, and the American forces passed through. It was a very large force or convoy, and the traces of it are still visible. Here, they hit a tank with a bomb, and look, the signs and traces are still here. One of them is a small tank, and the other is a large American tank, and these are the marks of the American tank. The glass is from the tank, which was burned here. The bomb had been placed here in this spot. In front of you, you can see this trench in this area. I was here with my friends, and the bomb was placed here by them. May Allah not bring us to harm. Almighty Allah gave great losses to that force, and their morale was broken here. The plan they had in Shamakat was completely disrupted. At night, around 11 o'clock, a bomb exploded on the American tank.
Now, the reach of the occupation has ended, but the grim image of the invaders' crime still lingers in the ruined homes of this village. Moreover, some of the residents of this area have been suffering from mental illnesses for years, bearing the torment caused by these hardships.
There have been many raids in these areas, there has been bombing, and many people have been injured. Some have been disabled. Look at this boy, he himself is disabled, he was bombed, and he got disabled in this bombing. Some people have severe nervous problems, they have completely lost their mental stability. Some people are badly injured. People have seen a lot of harm, suffering, and hardship. Now, inshallah, the Islamic Emirate is here, and we are very pleased with it, and we are very grateful. They always come and ask about us. I myself have developed mental problems, and I miss my brothers. My older brother, named Jalat Khan, has also gotten mental problems. Something is wrong with his mind. This person also has mental problems, and I, too, am ill. Since the time my brothers became martyrs, I cry a lot, and I have been suffering from these issues.
Beyond the horrors of the occupation, it has now been over 3 years since the people of the village have had a peaceful and prosperous life. The shepherds were finally able to move their herds up to the mountain foothills. where they could not only engage in their daily livelihood but also breathe in the tranquility of nature's beautiful embrace.
Now, thank God, there is peace and security, and time is passing well. There is no hardship. Since security has come, we haven't faced hardship. Before, it was a painful time. When we brought our livestock, shells would fall on us. There were wars and battles, and time was passing in chaos for us. Sometimes, our livestock would go hungry, and we would stay in the mountains for one night and one day. The wars and battles were frequent. Thank God, now time is passing well.
Now, the residents of Shamkat Valley have overcome the hardships of the occupation era. Day and night, they work with confidence, their children go to school. They have once again cultivated their lands, and they have returned to a normal life.
Inshallah, there is peace and security now, day and night. There is no problem. There is no theft or war. Before, there was a lot of insecurity. People would flee from one place to another. But now, inshallah, there is security in our area. Before, there were wars and it was impossible to reach the school. Now, it's been 3 years of peace, and it's better. People are coming to the school. Students are coming now. Before, no one would come. There were wars and raids. We would be sitting in the school, and suddenly, a raid would come. They would shoot, and half of us would run to one side, and half would run to the other side. The teachers would leave the school. Now, there is peace and security. We can go to school and return home safely. Now, the situation is good. Day and night, we can work here. We can take patients to the center with confidence. Before, we couldn't take patients to the center. Now, inshallah, whether it's night or day, there is no problem. We can go and come back with confidence. Here, if you work at night, you can do it with peace of mind. The people are 100% happy. They are receiving good from the government.
There is no longer the fear of night raids, and no one leaves their home in terror as darkness falls. Everyone carries on with their daily tasks in the embrace of peace. Yes, this is the new image of present-day Afghanistan. As a national, independent, and dedicated media outlet, we reflect the voice of the people. We present the atrocities, horrors, and crimes committed during the 20-year occupation of Afghanistan to the countrymen and international community through a documentary format. If you have witnessed incidents such as raids, killings, atrocities, or other acts committed by foreign invading forces in your area during 20-year occupation, you can share them with us via WhatsApp. This will allow us to document them accurately and prioritize their broadcast on national TV screen. Our contact number, 0744343668.